actually very excited because I am so happy to have Michael here. I've been talking to Michael for 3 months in the making of finally getting him available to be here. Michael, thank you.
Frank, thank you, and Guillermo and everyone there. Thank you for having me and hosting me today. Much appreciated. Happy to be here.
Oh, awesome. We're going to talk about so many things. Both of us, as we can see, I don't know who's going to compete, that who have more frames in the back, you or me.
I know. I still have wall space. You're kind of
Oh,
out of space. I think you win.
oh, just one wall. You know, I'm more of a Star Wars guy here, and super excited with when we embraced that culture and that brand into the company. And I know, and you and I were just not too long ago with the company. We just probably was like last year, almost towards the end of the year. We were unfortunately furloughed, and with everything that's happening with the pandemic, and it is hard for us to let go a piece of that, but we got a lot to share and a lot to be able to showcase to the audience that's here and watching us and trying to understand all this. So here in Ubico, Michael, I usually bring in the culture of Disney. So a lot of people who are our audience today, they understand a bit about the culture. So you okay to say cast member, and you okay to say Imagineers, and lots of the lingo that we utilize over at our formal company, but we want to hear from something that a lot of people don't get to hear, merchandising. And that's what you worked on for a lot of years. But before we go into merchandising, let's hear something we're very accustomed to do. It's a very culture we do over in Disney. We tell a story before we go and tell people things and show people the secret. So tell us a little bit about how did Michael Lyons got into the world of Disney, and a little bit of your story of how you got involved with merchandising, and how did you become part of this amazing team of the WDW.
Absolutely. Well, 20 years I had with the company, so I will try and compact this as much as I can so we're not here for the entire hour. But I started off as a frontline cast member in merchandise on Main Street, USA at the Magic Kingdom. I always loved Disney. I'm originally from New York and always wanted to work for Disney. So I packed up my belongings and drove down and walked into the casting center where they do the hiring. And I always loved going into the merchandise shops at Disney. To me, going in there was like you were seeing the trailer or the coming attraction for everything else you were going to see that day in the park or in the resort. So I knew I wanted to work in merchandise when I went into casting. Started off at the Camera Center on Main Street, USA 20 years ago, back when people actually used cameras and they didn't take pictures on their phones. And I was there for a little over a year. I went over to Disney's Animal Kingdom as an hourly cast member there. And it was when I was there that my managers, my leaders, really started to develop me. It was there that I learned what a mentor was, and they helped me. And they said, you should think about getting into leadership. And they guided me along that process. And I was very fortunate to become a leader, a manager with merchandise at Epcot. And I was at World Showcase in Epcot and up at the front of the park. And then after that is when I kind of veered over to another part of my career at Disney, and I started doing some temporary assignments with the training and development organization. One that I did was I taught traditions class, and traditions, as many know, is the class that all new first day cast members go through when they're hired at Disney. So I taught the class, and I also worked as a manager at Traditions at Disney University, which is a building that guests often don't get to see because it's in our backstage area, but it is like a small university. There's classrooms in there, and we teach instructor-led training there at Disney. I was then the training manager for the merchandise line of business back at the Magic Kingdom after doing that. So I had a team that reported into me, and we were responsible for scheduling and introducing all new training to merchandise cast members in all of the shops at the Magic Kingdom. From there, I went back to the operation, once again back at Epcot, And then again, was working with mentors there. And they said, you should think about going to the next level of management, which at the time the role was called area manager, and now it's called proprietor. I was very lucky from there to get promoted to an area manager role at Downtown Disney, which of course was Disney's retail and dining location, and now it's Disney Springs. So I was fortunate to be there for the opening of Disney Springs and was a part of that. And then I got to be a part of something that you never hear of when it comes to Disney and merchandise, and that is their off-site merchandise locations. So I managed the 2 Walt Disney World shops at the airport, at Orlando International Airport, that are off property, but they're managed and run by Walt Disney World, and the cast members work there as well. And then after that, my last role at Disney was at Disney's Hollywood Studios. I was there in 2019 when we opened up Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So tremendous excitement to be a part of that. Very, very busy time, but taught me a lot about what we do best at Disney, which is you may work in merchandise, or you may work in food and beverage, or you may work in attractions, but we're all one team and we all have one goal. And our goal then was to make Star Wars Galaxy's Edge successful. That was my last role, as he said. What's that?
Which it was.
It sure was. And as you said, Frank, last year I was there up until last year with the pandemic and everything that happened. I'm no longer with Disney. I will tell you that Disney took good care of us. They are a wonderful company. They did everything they could to try to avoid everything that happened, but the state of the world being what it is, it did happen. But the 20 years with Disney, the thing I tell everybody is working for Disney, and you know this as well, is like going on a great Disney attraction. You never know what's coming around the turn next, but when you get off, you want to get on and do it all over again. So wonderful career development and wonderful life development as well. So that is my Disney journey.
Amazing, because you and right before the pandemic in 2019, we were 76,000 strong, 76,000 total cast member in Orlando. I'm not talking about Paris and California and everything else. And to have the same story, I mean, I could talk to you, I could talk to so many proprietors, managers, directors, VPs, cast member, and it's the same story of how leadership, it's so connected, how they look at us and they say, you're a leader and I'm going to help you develop. And I'm sure when you started 20 years ago, you got developed by the leadership and you developed tons of cast members to become leader. So it's like that circle of life of leadership. And I would love for you to talk to me a little bit about your, because I done tradition too, and it's so excited to see all these new people coming into the Disney University, and they're like, they're like babies. They don't know what to expect, and we make it so fun for them. Tell me a little bit about your experience at Tradition.
That was incredibly rewarding. First and foremost, as a Disney fan, I had been a lifelong Disney fan, to be able to talk about Disney with a room full of people for 8 hours in a day and talk about Disney history. We went through everything from Walt Disney's birth all the way up to current day with the company, and to talk about our values at Disney, to talk about our service, to talk about safety and how Disney manages safety within the company, and then to talk all of this with cast members on their very first day, because we all remember, whether you work at Disney or not, what it's like to have a first day at work. It's a very stressful, nerve-wracking, exciting day. And to be a part of that and help people through that was very rewarding. But then also knowing that everybody out in that audience in the class was very much like you, that they came to work for Disney because they love Disney. Their love for Disney may be obsessive and way up here, or their love for Disney may be an interest in over here. But knowing that excitement was out there, and that you were going to be that first cast member that they were going to meet, you were going to be that ambassador in a certain sense for the day to welcome them into the company, was incredibly rewarding. And what was really amazing about that class is for years after that, because when you teach the class traditions, Disney has you do it on what they call a cross-utilization or a cross-U basis. So you still work in your home area, which for me at the time was Epcot, but
Right.
several times a month you'll be pulled over to DU, Disney University, to teach the class. I would then teach the class, and then a month later, I'd be walking through a park and someone would stop me and say, "You taught my traditions class. I remember you. You're Michael." And, it was
And
just,
you know what's so cool? I'm gonna pause you just right there because I
yeah,
love that. Because I teach that on here in Nubico's platform. And you know what's so cool? When I did tradition, I work at the Brown Derby in Hollywood Studio. And you know what's so awesome is that those people see you and they see you in costume. Because when you're in tradition, you're wearing some nice clothes, you put on your jacket. But when you at the park wearing your they look at you and they see the humbleness. This guy was my teacher. He just taught
yeah.
me traditionally like a week ago, and now I see him wearing a full costume, working like me, a cast member in the park in operations. So I wanted to pause you there because I love that you said that, because that's the leadership how Disney wants us to show that, wow, Michael just taught Frank about traditions, the beginning of the story of Walt to what we are and the future of the company and where we're going. And then at the same time, I see Michael on his full-blown costume, which is our uniform costume,
Mhm.
working in the park. And it goes by me, and I'm like, "Hey, Michael." Maybe Michael won't remember me because he taught 20 classes, but I remember him because he left that excitement of working for Disney for maybe 10 years or 15 years that he was there, that he kind of injected on me for me to do my job better than in the park. So continue, and I'm sorry that I had to bring in a little teaching on that.
No, and that's perfect. And that really was an amazing feeling to think that, for one day you had an impact on somebody. And that really, that was a huge life lesson too, that leadership really isn't about work, and leadership isn't about a title. And that was something that Disney taught us, that we are all leaders, and that we are all role models for Disney or whatever that we might do. And that you make an impact, that anything and everything you do each day, you make an impact. And you would see that firsthand in traditions when you were at work and somebody would say, "Michael," and you would turn and look, and then they'd say, "You taught my traditions class."
That's right. Michael, I know we talked about this. We when me and Michael get together to talk about our path, it's fun because we stay on for a long time. But I want to target a little bit because something that there's a lot of people that talk about the Disney culture, Disney leadership, the innovation of Disney, which how they innovate constantly, but they forget to mention one thing that makes Disney millions and millions of dollars: the merchandising. Every attraction have a store when you come out of it. Every street, it could be Sunset Boulevard, it could be Hollywood Boulevard, it could be Epcot Innovation, it could be Main Street USA. They are merchandising everywhere. Let's talk about that history of merchandising a little bit. Just a teaser, because I know you're gonna probably teach that course soon here, but I want you to throw that teaser of the history of the Disney merchandising.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, in terms of the history of merchandise with the company, it's been around since Walt himself, right? I mean, Walt had, the Mickey Mouse watch created back in the 1930s, and Walt saw the power of what we would call at Walt Disney World the tangible memory. That's in the merchandise line of business. We didn't call them souvenirs. We didn't call them trinkets or things that you would take home. We called them tangible memories because they were a
Culture.
memory. Right. Yeah, that's our culture. They were a memory that you could see or touch or hold once you were home. You talked about, you would get off an attraction like Pirates of the Caribbean, and you'll have a great memory of that attraction. But if you have the shirt of Pirates of the Caribbean, that's a tangible memory that you can always look back to. So that's a big part of that culture that we would teach the cast members from the service side of things, that you're not selling a guest, a stuffed animal or a plush, as we call it. You're not selling them a T-shirt or a photo album or, a pin. this is a tangible memory. This is something they're bringing home to remember their trip or to give to someone as a memory of the fact that they were at Walt Disney World. And the way, very high level and quickly, that Disney does that is they have a whole kind of progression where they have an art and a science to their merchandise. So they have a whole team that plans way in advance. And in outside retail, outside of Disney, they do that as well. You know, they plan for Christmas, they plan for spring, they plan for summer. Disney does that as well. But on top of that, Disney has to plan for, well, what new attraction is opening? And we're going to have merchandise with that. This year's the 50th anniversary of Walt Disney World, and I have a sneaking suspicion there might be merchandise coming for that too. So they have to plan for that. They then have to plan the creative side of it. What does that merchandise look like? And then the more practical or the science side of it, where does that go and how much do we allot? And then when it gets to the operation, there's that side of it as well. We're going to put this merchandise in a specific shop in the park. Why are we going to do that? Maybe it's to move guests in that direction. Maybe it's to move guests in another direction. Maybe the merchandise is themed because we're all about storytelling at Disney as well. So that's the science part of it. And then the art is, what do the windows look like? What does the display look like? What does the signage look like? And then when it gets to the managers and the cast members, what's the product knowledge? How can they talk that with the guest? And how do they talk that to the guest as more than just, what size are you looking for? How do they talk it in terms of, did you enjoy the attraction? What was your favorite part? So that they add to that tangible memory that the guest is about to take home. So there isn't a whole history of merchandise before it even gets to the park. And then there's preparation of just getting the merchandise to the guest once we have it in the shop at the park or the resort.
That's amazing. Another thing that's very detailed, which you kind of mentioned a little bit, but I just want to get a little bit out of it, is the merchandising supporting the storyline.
Yeah.
Because everything that we do in Disney is we tell story. So tell me a little bit about how do the merchandising part, it kind of like embeds into the storyline of everything that's going around us.
Yeah. So at Disney, we are all about the show, as we talk about, and the story. So we never want to do anything that's going to take the guest out of the story. So you wouldn't want to, walk through Main Street USA and see a cast member in a costume from Frontierland, because that's going to take you out of the story. It's the same way with the merchandise. You don't want to walk through a shop that's very heavily themed somewhere and see merchandise that doesn't fit. Best example of this, and it's a recent one, are all of the shops at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. The merchandise that you see there, as you know, Frank, because you're a big Star Wars fan, is very heavily themed to Star Wars. It would not make sense at all to have a Mickey Mouse plush toy in there or a set of mouse ears in there, because that doesn't fit to the story at all. Now, Mickey Mouse plush and the mouse ears fits in the Emporium or even at Hollywood Studios over on Hollywood Boulevard. But we always have to think about everything that we're doing, supporting the story. Every line of business does that. If you think about the food at the Brown Derby, you said you worked there. That food is very themed to, Hollywood in the 30s and the 40s. And it's the same thing with merchandise. So it's a nice detail. And when you're ever down at Walt Disney World again and you're passing through a shop, take a look at the merchandise and see how well it connects to the story.
It connects very well. Another thing is, I know there's something that's very detailed into the merchandising is the service of the merchandising. And I know you worked a lot on that with, showing cast member the detail of what the store, because you got the merchandising, the storytelling, now you got the service part of the merchandising. Share a little bit on that.
Yeah, so we would, train the cast members first and foremost, always to greet the guest when they came into the shop. We would say that our shop was like the guest coming into the park. It was like someone coming into your home, into your house. And so if you're working in a shop, much like you think about in your home, if you're having guests over, you don't sit on the couch and say, the drinks are in the fridge, the food's in the kitchen, help yourself. You go to the door and you greet the guests when they come in. It's the same thing at the shop. You're setting that stage and setting that story. Sometimes it's a themed greeting. Frontierland, you'd say howdy, and Star Wars Galaxy's Edge had their own kind of themed
Right
language.
son.
Bright Suns, absolutely, that they use. Then with the product, it became making sure the cast members were knowledgeable about the product, whether it was something that we may all have knowledge of, which would be a T-shirt and the sizes. And if a guest came up and said, I want to buy this for my 4-year-old nephew, do you think it'll fit? Do you think this will shrink if I wash it? We would educate the cast members about that, but also some of the more detailed product that we have out there, or even some of the more unique experiential or experience products that we have. Something, and I'll go back to Star Wars, is build your own lightsaber has been around for a number of years. So do the cast members know how to guide the guest through building that? Do they know which lightsaber belongs to which character, which color belongs to each character? And layered on top of that is this element of building the sales through the service. So we would do that through making sure that the cast members knew, yes, it was great to ask the guest, how is your day going? How is your vacation going? But we would also want them to ask what we called open-ended questions. So those were questions that couldn't be answered with just a yes or a no. Many times we'll be out shopping and someone will come up to us in the store and say, can I help you find anything? And you say no, and you move on. At Disney, we would train the cast members to say, who are you shopping for today? Who's your favorite character? Is there a particular Star Wars movie that you're a fan of? And then have the cast members show the guest that product. It wasn't to make the guest purchase the product, but it was to educate the guests, because a lot of guests would just come into the shop maybe to, escape the heat here in Florida during the summer. Other guests came in and they would be overwhelmed as they looked around the shop, because a lot of the shops are big and there's a lot of product. It was really just making the best experience for the guest, educating the guest, and then seeing through that if we could help through service building some of the sales.
Yeah, that is definitely something I always loved about shopping, is there was no pressure. It's not your typical store that you go in and there was a pressure to shop. The cast member will help you. They will restock constantly, because the look, and that's another thing we're gonna go into it, the flawless look of the flow of any given store that you walk into. It could be Galaxy Edge, it could be Hollywood Boulevard, it could be Epcot, Mouse Gear, which is phenomenal big. So, and then you also got the World of Disney down in Disney Springs, that you probably know that by heart. The flawless, the way, the movement of it and the layout. I mean, that's so detailed. And how do you see that storytelling of the way the store is, and how every single store throughout the complex it's set up to be?
Yeah, so I think that's another twofold kind of art and science answer, right? They would have Imagineers who would build a storyline to go along with the shop. Definitely true over at Wind Traders, which is the shop over at Pandora at Animal Kingdom. That has a whole storyline that culminates with purchasing the Banshee on your shoulder. So that would be set up from an aesthetic standpoint. But then there would be teams that would come in and look at the traffic flow of the guest. Look at which door is your busiest door, which door of your shop, if you had multiple doors in your shop, do most guests come in? And if most guests are coming in through, the door on the west side of the shop, maybe that's where we need to put our most popular product. Maybe that's where we need to put our product that's with the latest attraction or movie or season that we're in. So there was that thought of it as well. And then also, Walt had this idea that he introduced years ago when they opened Disneyland, this idea of the weenie. So Walt had a dog, and he would hold up a hot dog or a weenie to get the dog to come to him. Well, the Imagineers took that idea, and when they built the different lands, they would put things in like Cinderella Castle, or they would put something in the distance that would constantly keep the guests moving. And we do that in our merchandise shops as well. If you walk into a World of Disney, it's no secret that sometimes the plush or the stuffed animals are all the way in the back, because they know that that's where children are going to gravitate to and families are going to gravitate to, and that pulls traffic into the shop. Sometimes Christmas or seasonal product is in a place where you have to walk through the shop to get it. So that dates back to Walt's day of moving the guests through. So once again, it's very much an art and a science that's alive there in the shops.
I just love the concept of the Imagineers, how they, they're thinking of everything. One thing I love about Walt was he always studied people's behavior.
Yeah.
And that's something that to me is fascinating, because we build and we build because we want to build, but we forget how is people going to behave after we build. And then we have to go and build again to modify it. When Walt, he built it with the mindset that this is the behavior that I know people are gonna, act upon. So so here's another thing, and I know I have so many to you. I told I was gonna lead you, and we got time, so we're good. My next one is a big one, and this has been big because I taught this course before, and it's the innovation of merchandising. And here's the question, because I know you have a great answer, and you had to probably train a lot of cast members to do it, because I had to learn how to let our guests know that something is not available, but yet we have access to the warehouse in a second. Talk to us the innovation of merchandising that we built a few years ago.
You mean, is this where you mean if we don't have something available, how do we tell the guest about something else?
Well, we usually push towards a different merchandise, but a while back, we created this whole innovation on having the warehouse system in our iPad, where guests,
so the as it was called, the Shop Disney Parks app at one time. Yeah. So I mean, that is, that is Disney going along with the flow of the rest of the world, right? I mean, if you look at what's out there in the world, it's very easy for us with platforms like Amazon. We're at home. I want to buy this book. I want to buy this DVD. I need to buy dog food, whatever it might be. We can just get that on our phones. Why not bring that to our guests as well? And yeah, that was a huge learning curve for cast members in terms of being another option for guests. So if a guest came in and said, I'm looking for a T-shirt with Goofy on it, and we would say, we don't have a T-shirt with Goofy on it here in the shop, but we have a T-shirt with Goofy, Mickey, Donald. No, I really wanted a T-shirt with Goofy. It was actually a nice safety net for the cast members to say, well, there's something called the Shop Disney Parks app. Do you have a smartphone with you? Or what we did after a while is we had the cast members and our coordinators, who were essentially like our assistant managers. They had iPads, and they could go right to the Shop Disney Parks app and direct the guests to, not only could you buy this on the app, but if you don't want to buy it on the app, I can look right now and I can tell you that you're standing with me here at World of Disney. This is available at the Emporium. And the guest could say, well, that's great. I'm going to Magic Kingdom tomorrow morning. Right. And sometimes there would be some extra magic if the guest really wanted it. We could make a call over to the Emporium, give them the guest name, and they could put one aside for the guest and make sure they have it. So yeah, you're absolutely right. That was a game changer when it came to
the reason why I say it, because I actually got, how we do cross jobs, we could jump from one job to another. So my little story is that I think I was at the Emporium, and I was able to tell a guest that he was looking for a Mickey statue, the little Mickey statue with Walt's quote on it. Been around for a while. We were ran out of it at that time, and I asked the guest, what hotel are you staying, or what resort? He told me he's at the Floridian. And I'm like, and I look at the app and I'm like, oh, we have them at the Floridian. So you don't even have to buy it here. You can just get them in your room, like in your hotel, and bring it up to your room. The guest was like praising me, like, oh my God, this is so awesome. And you guys could do that. And I'm like, it's only an app. You could download it. That's in my mind. Obviously, I didn't say that. But I'm like, yeah, you are lucky. You got it. You don't worry. As a matter of fact, they have 7 of them. So the guy was so excited with that innovation. And it was simply an app that I think Best Buy have it, that any other store have it. But us having in Disney and having the coordinators, as you say, or a cast member who the coordinator say, hey, you take care of the app right now if a guest needs some kind of a item, and you were able to help them with that. So that was a huge game changer, innovator. But like you said, it was a lot of training.
Yeah, it definitely was. And, a big learning curve is that not everybody is tech savvy. Not everybody has a smartphone. Not everybody uses an app. So there was definitely a big learning curve on the part of the guest and on the part of the cast member as well. But now it's like second nature. And the great thing about it is, something you pointed out, Frank, is at Disney, we're always about removing those hassles that the guest might have, because they've planned, they've put a lot of money aside, they've waited a long time to come to Walt Disney World on vacation. So that was just another way to make things easier for the guests.
I love that you said that because I'm going to segue into, let's talk about when we roll out that you could shop at the stores and everything will be ready in your room when you arrive. That was an amenity. That was like a surplus for guests. And there was something behind the whole customer experience. And maybe you could tell us, I kind of know it, but if you tell us exactly the experience of the guests waiting at the end of the day to shop versus changing the whole game for guests to shop whenever they want, but not carry bags.
Yeah, so I can tell you when I first started and I was on Main Street USA at the Magic Kingdom, you would get almost every guest who was in the park during the day coming your way at the end of the night.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean the Emporium, you had stroller returns, you had so much going on, fireworks. So there was a thought of how do we remove this what was becoming a very stressful experience for the guests, because they would go past the Emporium in the morning and say, we'll get that at the end of the day. We'll come back in another 8 to 12 hours and we'll purchase that. Well, guess what? Everybody that came into the park had that same idea, and they're all coming back the same way you are. So I don't know the exact time that they rolled it out, but they rolled out resort delivery and they also rolled out package pickup. And with this, guests staying at a Disney resort could purchase something first thing in the morning in the Emporium, something really, really heavy like a Mickey figurine, and not have to worry about carrying it around all day. It would be sent back to their resort and it would be there usually the following afternoon. So the cast member had to ask some discovery questions like, are you checking out tomorrow? And just make sure we could get it back to them. But the guests would be given a slip that they would either bring to their gift shop in their resort, or the product would be brought right to their room. There was also package pickup, where even if you're not staying at a Disney resort, if you were staying somewhere else here in Orlando, or if you lived in Orlando and you wanted to buy something, we would hold it, Disney would hold it at the front of the park for you, and you could pick it up as you leave. I forget what the exact percentage is, but there was some percentage. I think guests were 30% more inclined to shop if they weren't carrying bags. So it not only removed the hassle of, gosh, now I have to deal with these crowds at the end of the night, or now I have to carry this big, bulky product around all day and worry about losing it. But it also helped drive some sales and some revenue in the shops as well.
So just so you know, the numbers, and I had the numbers, was few things happened during that big game changer. And I think Dan could tell you a little bit more. Dan Cockrell, he was actually part of the team back then when you had the ability, not only the sales increase, not only people shop throughout the day, and then it also changed the concept of less people in the shops. So people got to, like, some people saw the shop so crowded that they're like, I don't want to go in there now because it's just overcrowded. We'll buy it tomorrow. Oh, but we're checking out tomorrow. Oh, we go to Disney Springs. Then, oh, the day went crazy in the morning. We didn't get to buy. So the sales increased, less people in the shop. It made people happier because they got what they want. Also, complaints. A lot of complaints that the merchandise that they wanted was sold out already in the end of the day, and it didn't get restocked to the morning because merchandising you stock overnight. So a lot of that. So it was a huge. So guest service reported their great numbers on less complaint. Revenues went up, so it was a really good game changer. And that's I got to think that's really thinking outside the box on how Disney consistent innovate and think a different way to do things. And now I got to tell you another quick story. You know, I work in PhotoPass in Magic Kingdom, Main Street,
Yep.
USA. Me working in PhotoPass, gas crazy, like, well, we got to get to the store. We got to get to the store. So I turned around and I said, don't worry. You don't have to get to the store. You could just shop. You could go in the morning tomorrow and just shop what you want, have it delivered to you. And then I was like, what? You could do that? I'm like, yeah. They were like the happiest people in the world. I vividly remember. Like, you just made my day. I'm like, well, it's all over the app and the website.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. PhotoPass was another game changer, really, a huge game changer. And now, you know, having it right on your phone, even more so. When I started with Disney at the Camera Center 20 years ago, something we did was, it was pre-PhotoPass, guests would have to come into the shop to get their picture printed out that they had taken in front of the castle, or at the time with one of the characters over in Toontown. And of course, it was one of these situations where every guest would say, well, I don't want the photo to get ruined during the day, so let's pick it up before we leave. And everybody would have that same idea, and everybody would be waiting online. Yeah.
Michael, the line.
Yeah. Oh, I know it. I know it.
10
Yeah.
o'clock to pick up those photos. It was huge. But you know what? It was all fun. Everybody wanted that picture in front of the castle, in
Yep.
front of me. And again, Disney innovated. Disney got rid of Kodak, brought in their own Imagineers to create DPI, which is PhotoPass. I worked for PhotoPass for like 5 years. I kind of know the detail. It's the game changer of you able to get that photo immediately on your phone, download it, pay for it with your Magic Band, and it was just another world. And we keep innovating and innovating, and we're still innovating. So that's one thing that we in Disney focus so much on a 5 pillar, which is culture, innovation, leadership, quality of service, and brand. Let's talk about branding, because brand is, you know, you went outside the Disney stores. You actually manage a store at the airport of Orlando International Airport, which is that's the first thing people see when they arrive, a big Disney store as they come out of the plane. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we had cast members there who would joke that, you know, it wasn't the cast member who taught traditions who was the first cast member that a lot of new international cast members would meet. It was usually those cast members in the shops, because as they got off the plane, they went in there. That was a fascinating experience working there, because when you work and you manage a shop at Walt Disney World, you're in your own home. You know, you can do basically what you want in terms of, I'd love to have a cast member stand outside the door of the shop and welcome guests as they come in. Well, when you're at the airport, you're operating this little microcosm of Walt Disney World, but you're in somebody else's house. You know, you're at the airport, and an international airport where you have to think about things in terms of safety, security, passenger traffic. You have to think about busy days like the day before Thanksgiving or holiday, you know, what it's like the holiday week. So it was really interesting working there, because, you know, the guests would walk in and say to us, I feel like I'm at Walt Disney World. And we were like this break for them in a certain sense, because, you know, traveling can be stressful. You know, you've got your bags, you're waiting for TSA, you need to get something to eat. Do I have my ticket? And for them to come in and either when they first come in to Walt Disney World, or when they first arrive in Florida, or when they're leaving, we were like this little kind of safe haven of their Walt Disney World vacation, where they could come in and get a little piece of the resort. And what's interesting is we saw the majority of the guests, and I believe the percentage was about 85% of the guests who came into our shops were on their way home. So I think it really speaks to, once again, the brand and the impact that Disney has, is that even with these guests who are on their way home, getting ready to board their plane, waiting to get through TSA, they would still come in, sometimes not even to shop, just to look around and take one last look and talk to cast members and tell us about their vacation. And on top of everything else, that really taught me a lot about partnerships, because here we were, Disney, we know who we were, we knew our brand, but we had to partner with the airport. We had to partner with the leadership at the airport. We had to partner with security at the airport, because we only had control over our little shop. So if there was something going on out on the concourse, if it was going to be a busier day, we had to make sure we were receiving that communication from the airport, and that we were communicating to them about what we were doing as well. It was just, there's a lot of really great stories there, from just how we would be able to present our signage, because there were certain rules where they had to be fair to all the shops there, and even the products that we carried. For example, we did not carry snow globes at the airport because they had liquid in them, and you're not allowed to bring liquid through TSA. But they were such great partners at the airport, because we knew obviously how important the airport was to bringing the guests here, and they knew how important Disney was for bringing the guests to Orlando. So that was a really unique experience.
I love that, because Disney does so well when it comes to collaborating with partnership. And that's one thing that we could do a whole thing on it. Michael, I want to this is my last one, so we could segue towards the end. We almost there. It's already 45, 43. A little bit of experience of a transition between Disney, downtown Disney, and Disney Springs.
Yeah, so that was a huge learning experience. Downtown Disney, for those who know, was kind of a sleepy little retail dining location that was turned into this really upscale, a large, major retail dining location with some big names in it. Once again, working there was a huge learning in partnerships, because we had Disney stores there, like World of Disney, but we also had what we called operating participants. So, there's the movie theater is run by AMC. There's Planet Hollywood. There's a Gap there, a Gap store there. So taught me a lot about partnerships as well, and bringing those partners into the Disney experience, and also understanding their brand and how they wanted to represent who they were while they were on Disney property as well. During the construction was a really interesting experience in terms of making sure that we removed as many hassles as we could for the guest. When something's being constructed in a park, like Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, you can put up a big wall and say, coming soon. And all this construction is going on behind the wall. When we were building Disney Springs, the construction was going on all around us. So
I remember the pain.
Yeah. So, everything from getting the guests into Disney Springs to, preserving the show and preserving the quality while we were there was always a challenge. But what was great about working both downtown Disney and Disney Springs is, even as we got bigger, we were still a very small community. It's everything at Disney is just so different wherever you work. When you're at a park, attractions are doing their thing, and food and beverage is doing their thing, and merchandise is doing their thing, and you'll come together from time to time for big initiatives. At Disney Springs, we worked together every single day because we were living in each other's space. You depended on guest show or custodial. You got to know the operating participant team, and Disney had a team of Disney managers that were liaisons between Disney and the operating participants, and then operations too, the parking team that ran the parking garage and the parking lot. You depended on them so much. So to see that come to fruition through all of the construction and kind of the pain points, if you will, of getting through there was really rewarding. And now look at it, it's just beautiful when you walk through there.
It's rewarding. It's well done. And one thing Disney does so much is it keeps the magic while they're in construction. They know
Yep.
how to do it so well, how to make the flow work. And that to me is, again, I always tell people, we are consulting. Disney is a consulting company. We are conglomerate. We are a construction company. We are a developer. We are food and beverage. We are merchandising. We are
Yeah.
attraction, line. We everything. Hotels. We could talk about any business line, and we do it so well. And we do it
Very
so
true.
well.
Yep.
I want to talk about, I want to go ahead and let the audience know a little bit. We're going to open up, guys, for a little Q&A. It's only 5 questions because our time is getting cut short here. Michael, thank you. You're doing an amazing job. I want to talk about Michael's course. So Michael is about to write, Michael started writing a book. We're not going to tell
Yes.
you the name of the book yet. But Michael is the writer. That's his, if you could look at his bio, he is a writer. Michael is part of our roster, our team. He's gonna put together a course for, it's actually is customer as customers. Wait. I have the course name here because he made it such an awesome name. It's called PC Dust and Products, Merchandise at the Walt Disney World. That's gonna be called his new course that's gonna be available here in Ubico. It's in English, obviously. And the course is gonna talk about introduction of how we all have been to Disney, and then it's gonna have several parts. So part one, it's the history of Disney merchandising, the merchandise at Disney support as the story, as the show. You know, that's what we do at Disney. We do a show. And then right after that, we're gonna have, my papers flew away. It's gonna be part three, service and merchandising, where we're gonna talk about product knowledge, gas recovery, offering authority for your product. And then we're going to talk about the business of merchandising, where we talk about the process around the why, the science, the art that he talked about a little bit, and then the future of merchandising, the growth of online sales, and the shopping experience for our guests. This is an amazing product. I mean, I want to take this course, even though I know it, but I want to take it. This is so good. I'm so excited for you, Michael. And then the storytelling of merchandising. Something that I do here in Ubico, which I think I did my last course, was the storytelling. How to tell storytelling on the product that you sell. It could be whatever product you sell. Everything have a storytelling to it. And I love that you brought that because it's how cast receive training support and how they tell the story of the show, theme the location, product and specific location, how to cast and use the theme language, which I love that. Immersive experience is something that we so focus on, and how the story continues. One of the things I love about immersive experience, and I know you want to focus on Star Wars Galaxy Edge, which it is one of the most immersive, but I gotta say, BR Gas
Oh,
to
yeah.
me, it is the one most immersive experience to walk into that restaurant. And I've done F&B a lot with Disney. So walking into that restaurant and traveling yourself back to a cartoon movie, and imagine Beauty and the Beast dancing in that restaurant, and just the immersive experience of it, and how we transport guests to that world, and how we tell the story as a cast member to be able, so we could be part of that story right there from 8 hours that we worked there. So,
Yeah,
again,
amazing. I agree.
it's we were lucky, guys, you and I, to be part of this. But what we want to do right now, with you writing your book, with me creating content, and being a facilitator, with you coming on board to be a facilitator, I think the audience have so much to learn and so much to apply. Because, Michael, let's be honest, anybody could apply this in their business. Wouldn't you think so?
Oh yeah, I think, the what what Disney does is they want any guest who comes to Walt Disney World to have, what we call a magical experience, but have a very positive experience. That's what anyone wants. That's what anyone wants. If you go into a retail store, if you go into a restaurant, if you go into a doctor's office, anyone who works there wants you to have a great experience, just like we do when you come to visit Disney.
Correct. It's
Yeah.
and that's what you and I and Dan and Lee and Valerie and a few other friend of ours, We have this thing called Perch that Michael and I
Yeah.
are part of it. A bunch of leaders of Disney, and we just every week we get together and we just talk about our past. We talk about great stuff that we could do, and we are ready to inject all this knowledge into you guys. And Ubico Business Global School is here to bring all this content to you guys, and I'm super excited.